Hey guys, this is it's me again. I know it's been a long time. I did originally was supposed to do a video about this 2 days ago, but unfortunately I got caught off because of family stuff. However, I guess I was lucky enough because today is actually the actual 10-year anniversary of the Monsterverse, starting with the 2014 Godzilla film. So, today's video I'm going to be focusing and doing a review for Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire, the most recent Monsterverse film that came out of this year throughout the past 10 years, and as well the latest entry in the fifth Monsterverse film. So, it is a spoiler review, but I'm going to tell you when I'm going to start spoilers. So, let's begin on my overall thoughts of Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire. Now, I will say this: I am not going to be comparing it with Godzilla Minus One because Godzilla Minus One and Godzilla X Kong are completely different type of films. Even though they are both have the same name or basically featuring Godzilla, I'm not going to be doing some comparisons because I feel it's first of all unfair and especially a different tone. If I'm doing any comparisons with the Godzilla films, I'm going to be focusing on the Monsterverse comparison films. So that way it's basically what I'm ruling out versus basically comparing it with Toho and Legendary. So let's start off with what I liked about Godzilla X Kong. Well, it is actually feels more like the monsters are being centered versus the humans being centered, which is what I like about. I like about more of the monsters are like the main focus and basically get to see them doing their habitats or daily routines and their adventures basically. The main star obviously is Kong, which I do like Kong in this film, of course, especially I like him in the Monsterverse. He's basically like the most compelling monster character that we witness and that we feel for, and he's literally basically the main star. Especially him looking for his long lost kind, but he thought he was alone, but it turns out he's not. And of course, we have Godzilla, which I do like the parts where Godzilla was fighting other monsters. However, I feel that Godzilla in this movie, same thing how they did with Godzilla versus Kong, he's like barely shown. Godzilla X Kong, he feels, as some people say, he's more like a cameo, but only a necessary need if they needed him. Just so know, this film was supposed to be Kong focused, or supposed to be titled Kong, Son of Kong, or something like that, which was supposed to be the next film, but I guess they decided to add Godzilla at the end, which I mean, it's okay. I'm just hoping it's not something that us Godzilla fans or my community or my Godzilla community fans, well, not mine, but basically the Godzilla community is not like basically pushing Legendary or Warner Brothers or any or the director to say like, hey, add Godzilla into this film. Which I hope it's not that case. I hope it is the case is basically like we'll just add Godzilla because he will probably need to help Kong to fight this kind of threats. Now, I will say this: the new threat, Scar King, he is definitely, well, I wouldn't say he's the most powerful villain, but he's definitely the most cunning villain I've seen in the Monsterverse, and I actually like him. He's very, what's the word? Malicious, I would say. He has a very great characteristic. He kind of reminds me a little bit how the Joker is. He's probably, you could say, the Joker of the Monsterverse. Like, he's not powerful, but he's definitely very cunning and has a very charisma that makes you feel like, oh, he's very terrifying. And definitely a type of creature that can basically is a manipulator. And especially with his second antagonist, Shimo, which of course everyone already knows at this point. Shimo is the secondary antagonist and is very similar to Godzilla, but she's more of a ice dragon, if some would say. And I do like the fight scenes. The fight scenes are amazing. They are good, and the special effects are pretty decent. Um, I want to say the only thing I kind of got me a little bit off was probably Godzilla's evolution in the Arctic. Don't get me wrong, I actually did like the new design, something new that they like to put on Godzilla. However, it was just a CGI look when he came out from the ice, feels a little off. And then in the next scene, it looks a little better. But that could be my opinion. Now, let's talk about the human characters, which I'm pretty sure people are kind of like probably the most talk, I guess. I don't hate the human characters. I think they're pretty decent. They're not like, oh, I feel dramatic and want to cry for that. No, they're more like basically they know the situation. It just doesn't feel like it feels more as maybe comedic than actually feeling like, oh, we're depressed or we're in this dire situation. But I still like the human characters. I just don't think it's like if you're expecting the film to be more dramatic, it probably is not that type of film you should be expecting. And I was not expecting this film to be like a masterpiece kind of film. I'm expecting it to be a good monster film, and I got a good monster film. Now, if I'm going to do some comparisons, which one I like more, Godzilla vs. Kong or Godzilla X Kong, The New Empire, I'm going to go side more for Godzilla vs. Kong because I guess the simpler story actually basically makes it more, I guess, not complicated. Godzilla vs. Kong was not too complicated. It basically is talking about the story that we already acknowledge, and it's a better story. Godzilla X Kong, I think they try to add so much elements into it. It's what makes the film a little bit more zaggedy. But what makes it worth is basically the actual monster fights and especially the strong focus of the monsters, which makes it up for it. Now, my overall opinion for the film, I wanted to give it somewhere between 8 or 9 out of 10 because the reason why I put 9 out of 10 for myself is because I actually did like it. I really enjoyed it. It's not like perfect, but it has some flaws, but it's a good time entertainment and I feel like it's awesome. However, because I give Godzilla vs. Kong, I believe was a 9 out of 10 a few years back, I did prefer Godzilla vs. Kong over Godzilla X Kong, which is why I was thinking maybe it could be an 8 out of 10. Or I could put 8.5 out of 10, whichever is my overall opinion. But I can say it's between the two. Now, if you're probably wondering, should you take my word for it? It's totally up to you. I'm not going to be the person to be like, hey, you really got to watch this. I can only do is encourage. But if you feel my words are not encouraging enough, then your own opinion, just save your money or just wait until when it's coming out on DVD or Blu-ray or 4K, whichever you guys watch. Or if you want to watch it on stream, I think Amazon Prime has it available, probably about $15 to $20. But anyways, that's pretty much it. Now, if you guys do not want spoilers, we're about to start spoilers section in about now. So, if you guys haven't seen the film yet and don't want to hear spoilers, please leave. So, I will say this. I guess the main issues with the human characters is because they're too comedic. The only person I did like is Trapper, which he was actually a pretty cool, decent guy. The only thing I would say is, sorry about that. I had to shoot something away. The only thing I would say, I guess it's not as compelling as how it was with the other Godzilla films, but it is more of a comedic, which I'm fine with that. I actually like comedic characters versus basically boring characters like they did with Godzilla 2014's Ford, which kind of downs me a little bit. Well, these characters are just basically more like, I guess you can say that I enjoyed it a little bit. Of course, let's not forget about Suko. Suko is actually a pretty cool kind of mini kaiju that Kong takes on his journey. Well, of course, I'm assuming Suko may be the son of Scar King because when I watched the film, most of the Kongs I've seen are mostly either gray or brown or black, while Suko is more of orange, and Scar King is the only one with red fur. And there is a scene where when Scar King was preparing for war, or before that, after he finished his meal, he threw it at the wall. We see some female Kongs holding the babies that look similar to Suko. So Suko may be one of, like, I guess, one of the prodigy's son of Scar King. But then again, Scar King probably is doing that so that way he can repopulate his army and then let them serve under his command or something. And of course, yes, Scar King, he could be a potential greater threat if he actually has more Kong armies coming with him to take over the surface area, which makes it reason why for Kong and Godzilla to team up, saying basically Scar King is a threat level monster because he's basically has an army and he has a Shimu on his side, which can cause some chaos, especially with Shimu potentially being a huge threat because according to some sources, they believe that Shimu caused an ice age, or potentially is the reason why King Ghidorah has been frozen. So we're not too sure which of the lores or tales are true, but I'll just take it in a grain of salt to see what it is. But either way, I believe Scar King is a definite great villain for Kong. I would say definitely more compelling villain for Kong, or the best villain for Kong. But for Godzilla wise, Godzilla seemed to be able to handle Scar King very easy because he literally destroyed his whip when it was used to control Shimu, and he basically he sees Scar King nothing more of a ragdoll. And then Shimu is basically an awesome opposite for Godzilla. But what I like at the end is she became an ally for Kong, and I guess maybe a pet. I'm not too sure, but it seems to point it out that way. But I did like the ideal ending that the title is called the New Empire, basically saying that now with Kong becoming the king for his kind, and now all the other Kongs are free, they're now building a new empire for Hollow Earth for Kong to rule, while Godzilla basically takes a nap at the Coliseum. Now, do I feel like they shouldn't have changed Godzilla's design? I feel like if they actually give Godzilla using his features that is being presented to Godzilla more active into the film, it probably would make more sense. But because Godzilla's more pinkish and they only probably, I guess, what's the word? I guess when he's in that kind of energy, it probably allows him to be able to escape from Shimu's frost breath or frost beam from her, so that way he can melt it easier. Because I feel like he grows some arm elbow blades and looks like blades on his tail, and is not utilized very much, which is kind of disappointing, I would say. But I still like the design, but I just feel like they kind of underutilized it though. And especially when Godzilla was fighting some of the Kongs, I feel like he could have used it to fight some, which is why I was expecting it if they have more Kongs, army of Kongs, because the way I'm seeing it, I think there was like about 10 of them that Scar King brought. If they have actually about maybe 20 or 30 of them, it probably would make more sense for it to be a little bit more overwhelming, which is why Kong and Godzilla had to fight together. And of course, Mothra is in it, and she's only briefly in there, but I'm okay with that because I feel like because the main focus is Godzilla and Kong. But I feel like Mothra is basically like the Wonder Woman version for the Batman versus Superman. It has that kind of feeling, especially with the Egypt fight. Except except they switch roles with Godzilla being the superior again, defeating Kong or about to kill Kong, and then Mothra comes in and saves the day. Or maybe Mothra's more of Lois Lane, but different. But overall, Mothra did survive at the end, and I am happy to see it going forward. And especially, I'm happy that they are greenlighting for this film to be on a next sequel. We're not too sure if it's going to be a next Godzilla versus Kong 3, or could it be a solo Godzilla film, because according to the director, if he's coming back, he wants to focus on the story with Destroyer, which that is an interesting take. I know many people saying like we should save him for last because he's like the big boss, like the Heisei series. But I feel like maybe it's more appropriate. Many people prefer like maybe we should have Space Godzilla in the next film. I feel like Space Godzilla could be there, but I feel like Space Godzilla is maybe in my ideology. I think Space Godzilla is a more of a ending threat level because I feel like here's the reason why. Destroyer is man-made weapon, and he can basically, of course, could potentially fight and kill Godzilla, yes. Space Godzilla is basically the upgraded version of Godzilla. Plus, I feel like Space Godzilla could also, if he's like the king, if Godzilla's like king of the monsters, Space Godzilla's basically like king of space, even though he's like comparison fighting with King Ghidorah in, I guess, popularity or so. I feel like Space Godzilla could potentially be the world ender, bringing his army, if there's an alien army that has not been discovered from outside of Monarch's Earth. And I feel like that's more appropriate for going forward to Destroya's story, because I feel like what they haven't tackled is some mutant monsters, mutant made monsters like Biolante. Heck, if they want to throw Gigan, even though he's an alien, Gigan could be half alien, half mutant. Or maybe as well with Space Godzilla being introduced, but half alien, half mutant. But who knows? We'll see how it goes from this point, or what Legendary or any of the creators or developers have ideas for continuing the Monsterverse. But I'm just glad we are going to continue the Monsterverse. Anyways, that's my overall thought, and I will be doing a Godzilla Minus One video very soon. So thank you guys so much for taking your time, and hope to see you next time.